Morning, everyone. I'm Dean Glass, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's Penning the Past lecture hosted by Save Our Heritage organization. We're thrilled to have with us Kathy Blavatt for a fascinating exploration of the history of Ocean Beach. Kathy is an award-winning author, historian, and photographer. Growing up on Sunset Cliffs Boulevard overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Kathy's roots intertwine deeply with the very fabric of this vibrant community. Her intimate connection to Ocean Beach is evident in her numerous books, articles, and lectures dedicated to preserving its rich heritage. As a member of the Ocean Beach Historical Society Board since 2006, Kathy has been instrumental in documenting and celebrating the unique stories and characters that have shaped Ocean Beach over the years. Through her books, such as Ocean Beach, Where Land and Water Meet, as well as her photography book, OB's Weird, Wild, and Wonderful, Kathy brings to life the colorful tapestry of Ocean Beach's past. If you have questions along the way, please type them into the chat feature, and Kathy will address them at the end of the program. So, without further ado, let's warmly welcome Kathy Blavatt and learn about the rich history and unique character of Ocean Beach.
Good morning. I'm very happy to be here, and I hope to enlighten you about some of the history of Ocean Beach and some of what's going on right now. And we'll get started with the program here. This was the third book I worked on Ocean Beach. The previous one, I worked with the Ocean Beach Historical Society, which I sit on the board, which was just called Ocean Beach. And previously my OB Weird, Wild, and Wonderful, which had a bunch of photos of Ocean Beach, which has become more historical as time goes on because of the passing of many of the people that were in there. Part of the reason I wrote this book is because the previous one, the Ocean Beach one, I'd gone out and asked a lot of people to please submit things that hadn't been seen or different kinds of stuff and stories. And a lot of them got back to me after it went to print. So this one here is an extension of the first one. This photo on the cover here was actually on a slide that was found in a trash can by a semi-homeless fellow. He had found a bunch of slides, and we think it's a fairly famous photographer that took these, and he donated them to the Ocean Beach Historical Society. This picture here is interesting because at the time the book was finished, that stone that the two ladies are standing on was still there. And then about 4 years later, it disappeared. I don't know if somebody stole the stone or if a big wave finally tossed it off, but it was pretty amazing that it had lasted all this time since the 20s. Anyhow, I hope you enjoy the talk. I got involved with writing these books a lot and getting involved with the Ocean Beach Historical Society because I found out that my family, on the female side of the family, went back 3 generations. And I had pictures of them at the Panama Exposition. And this picture here is of 3 generations of my family. The little girl on the right is my grandmother at age 14. And my great-grandmother and great-great-grandmother and my great-aunt are in this picture, and they were cruising Ocean Beach in 1924. What's funny about this picture, too, is that the OB Women's Club has this blown up on the wall, and they wrote out, we think these women were going to the yearly flower hat contest at the the OB Women's Society. Anyhow, it kind of looks like it, so they probably were. But this picture and a few others inspired me to get more into the Ocean Beach's history since my family came from this area. This is another one of the photos from the slides that were found in the trash can, and it's just beautiful. So Ocean Beach was called Muscle Beach, or Muscle Beds, sorry. in the early beginning, and then it became Ocean Beach. Founders, Billy Carlson, who was quite a character, and Frank Higgins had changed the name from Mussel Beds to Ocean Beach. The women are posing there with bladder kelp, which washes up on the beach quite a bit in Ocean Beach. And in the background, you can see the part of La Jolla and PB area. And anyhow, we'll go from there. Wonderland was after the time of Billy Carlson and them. It opened in 1913, and it was the biggest amusement park on the West Coast. And the trains from back east had started coming here, and they were trying to attract people to Ocean Beach. And this is at the foot of the river near Voltaire Street, where it was. And in the picture to the right, you can see the arches there. That was part of the old Wonderland Park. The Panama Exposition came, and that kind of killed part of this, because they took part of the animals up to the exposition. But that was a good thing, because it later became part of the animals became part of the San Diego Zoo that was established there. So if it wasn't for Ocean Beach, you wouldn't have some of the animals for the zoo. Also, the Wonderland, it slowly went away in 1915, but then they kept the casino and the ballroom and parts of it, and it went into like the early 20s, but then kind of disappeared over time. The 1916 flood that they had wiped out part of the roller coaster and some of it then too. So there were several things going against it at the time on keeping it there. We had sand dunes that a lot of the houses are built on now in Ocean Beach, from the river all the way down to Newport Avenue, where it kind of veered off in a triangular direction towards the beach. And here you can see some of the sand dunes in the early cottages in 1924. And we're looking towards the east, towards the hills of Point Loma a bit there. This is an aerial view, and it shows False Bay, which was wetlands area. And you can actually see out to the San Diego Bay towards where Liberty Station is now. And that curved road that goes around on the left-hand side, that's West Point Loma Boulevard. And some of the original cottages are still there. And they had little boat houses that went out for people to fish. And those are on the right-hand side. You can see two of them. One of those was brought over from 2 lots over and put there. They're two of the last few left now, but the grass backs those. The area that triangulars out towards the bay between the hills there, that's what's now Nimitz Boulevard. And Collier Park is off to the right-hand side back when it was that. You can also see some trees on the mid upper section. They had some farms here. They had a citrus grove, and there's a couple like 10-acre farms up on top of the hills. And Madam Tingley and Colonel Ed Fletcher helped get the water going through the community, which helped these farms establish themselves back in the time. Margaret Rankin was a librarian, and she lived in Ocean Beach, and she was one of the first ones to establish community libraries and funding for them. And this is her family's house here, and it's been renovated very nicely by a family that owns it. The picture off to the left-hand side, they actually found in the wall, and it's a very old negative. And we don't know exactly what it was for, but it was found in one of the walls while they were renovating. Rankin's family, it would be her uncle, lived across the street, and he headed up the Masonic Lodge and also was the postmaster in Ocean Beach. So this family had a lot to do with Ocean Beach back in the day. This house up on the left was built in 1909. The mother of my maid of honor lived there, so I have spent a lot of time in that house. And it backs the park there. And this is my friend's sister. And this is before they put the grass in. And they talked at one point, they ran the sewage out to here, but they had a lot of tomatoes that grew very well back there when they talked about this land back there. And the girls used to go collect glass so it wouldn't be so dangerous out there in the sand. Ocean Beach is interesting because it was very the boundaries kind of moved around at times. Where Collier Park is in the deed for Door of Hope, it actually said Ocean Beach in it, where now it is the Point Loma Planning Board's area. And a lot of times, Sunset Cliffs, the beaches on the postcards, it says Ocean Beach. They also called the area Sunset Cliffs and sometimes Point Loma. So it all kind of ran together, and there was a little bit more of a closeness at that time of the two communities. On the right here is the second oldest hotel. The previous one is gone. And this is on Sunset Cliff, Newport Avenue. And it's the youth hostel there, and it's still there this day. And a nurse owned that originally. And one of the little boys here, the one on the left, that was Frank McElwee. And I'm going to talk about him quite a bit, but he came to Ocean Beach. I'm sorry, that was his son here, but his father came to Ocean Beach when he was in his early 20s in 1905. And he had tuberculosis. The doctors had told him, go someplace nice and live out your life because you're not going to live very long. And yet he had a child, and he was very involved with Ocean Beach, and I'll be talking more about him. This is Mrs. Clark, and she actually was the owner of the Wisteria Cottage, which is fairly famous in Ocean Beach. The OB Historical has a lot of fundraisers there. It has a double-sized lot with these beautiful wisteria vines that drape over it. And she was in the seaweed contests, which were quite popular back in the day. This is where the foot of the pier is. Where you see that staircase goes down is right about where the pier goes out. And you can see one of the older cottages that was there. This was Camp Holiday, and it was built in 1923. And the Spray Hotel next door was built in 1919. And they had a lot of businesses right on the beach. They had a restaurant there, they had real estate, they had an ice cream stand. And these are the tide pools that you see if you're looking off the pier to the north. And a lot of people came down for those. This is a picture from a couple weeks ago, and it shows the foot of the pier, and these are the cottages up above. And you could see what they look like now. A lot of us are kind of worried that these may get taken out when they build the new pier, and we're hoping they don't. They have a new owner. That kind of dilapidated apartment in the background there, the fellow that owns that has now bought those. They're very historic, but I'm not sure they've been designated. This one up above the surface by the palm tree there, about 20 years ago, they added on to that to make it look like the one in the lower right. And the Coastal Commission or the city, someone made them put it back to the original way. So it kind of sets precedence that these were historical. As the auto court, those smaller little cottages, what we'd call, mini cottages now, uh, they can be moved around. And throughout the books I've done, they've been in different uh, ways that they've had them moved around on the lots. Okay, this is Bembo's and in the background there. And that's near where the parking lot was by the pier there. And it was a bathhouse, and you could rent swimsuits there and towels. And it was there for quite a while. It resembled Belmont Park a lot. And it was very popular back in the day. And it opened in 1914. Uh, Here shows the popularity of the beach, and they have a lot of historic documentation, though, that there were a lot of rip tides, and a number of military and other people drowned during one of the bad rip tides, and that helped create the lifeguards throughout San Diego after that massive drowning. And they have a statue that talks about these drownings at the time. It still has some pretty heavy duty rip tides now, but with some of the jetties and stuff, it's not quite as bad. The picture on the right, that's looking down from where the cottages are. The Silver Spray was part of the Spray building there, which was for tourists at that point. And it was a hot water, saltwater pool. And you see the chimney stack there. That's where the heat went out for the heating of it. And our Ocean Beach Historical has actually donated blueprints showing how they heated this. And they had gas pipes that ran several blocks away connected to this. And it was built in 1919. It was very popular. Some of the original lifeguards started there, and quite a few swimmers, and I'll bring more on that. It also had a cafe over there. This was a big tourist site during the times. Long distance swimmer Florence Chadwick swam there, and her teacher swam there. Like I say, quite a few famous swimmers swam in this pool. Here's the Silver Spray later on. And on the right was shortly before they tore it down. They made a deal with the city that they had to keep up the wall and the access through there to the cliffs of Ocean Beach. A few years ago, it was being cut under, and it was actually going under part of the Spray apartments there, and the city had to go and fix that. As far as the little boardwalk here, they've had several versions of the wood, and several times that had been washed away through big waves and things. And now they have a concrete one, and they're in the process of redesigning the pier, which also will probably redesign the walkway. And they're talking about a handicap ramp that will curve around through and up to the new pier. I suggest people go and look. It's very interesting, the process on the new pier. Unfortunately, the old one was pretty heavily damaged in the last couple of years, and they've closed it off, and I don't think it's going to reopen at this point. So we're hoping that the new pier is built in a short amount of time. Okay, here's pictures where you can see the difference between high tides and big storms that have, in this case, on the upper one, it actually took out the wood boardwalk at that time, and Bembo's is flooded. The triangle the grass is on down there now was a building that got hit like 3 times within a few years and destroyed. And the women's club had been there, the OB Women's Club. And So anyhow, they've turned it to grass, and just recently with the big storms this year, they pulled out all the grass and replanted it, and we'll see how it does. The lower picture shows the sand replacement from dredging of Mission Bay, and we had a lot of sand back then. Right now, there's not as much, and they had to put up mounds because of the big waves this year, and some of the streets were flooded. And over the last 15 years, they've had a few times where the waves have come up onto the streets on parts of Ocean Beach. The 1916 flood was the largest flood of the century, um, and it was interesting because in 2016 we had one of the largest floods here, and the picture down below is a condo that they turned into Airbnbs later on, and they had some Lamborghinis in there and a Mercedes that were destroyed because it flooded. It was an underground parking lot. I personally feel that they didn't do their homework on that underground garage, because we had a map as the OB Historical that shows some of the old natural springs, and one is right under the parking lot there where the lifeguard station is. And it's also, there's been a lot of pictures over the years that have shown anywhere from 2 to 4 feet of water in this area. So it really wasn't a good place to put an underground parking garage. This is showing Newport Avenue and the water that came on that during the 216 flood. The other interesting thing was that the infrastructure for the original, it was the sewage slash outfall that was done out of bricks, was taken out exactly 100 years after that largest flood. So, and I grabbed a chunk of that for historical sake. But anyhow, it's kind of interesting that, and it looked like this round brick channel that they put this in, or I guess they call it flood control. It had held together very well over a lot of time, it looked like. This is on the other side of Ocean Beach, if you're along the river there, and you can see the palm trees, Collier, Spalding, Speckles, different people had planted at the time. Most of these, I think, were done by Collier. He made a deal to get parkland where Collier Park is, and across the way where the ball fields are on the other side of Nimitz and Correa, in exchange for planting trees along some of the main streets, which included Voltaire and West Point Loma Boulevard. And they also planted Monterey cypress along some of these too. Right here is the opening to Robb Field, which has been several restaurants over the years, actually more than several, and it was a malt shop back then. This is back when they had a bridge that went from Mission Beach to Ocean Beach, and the two communities were linked up a lot more, and a lot of people from Mission Beach would cross the bridge and come over to Ocean Beach to buy a lot of their food and general supplies and enjoy the community. And there was also a bait shop nearby here too, and they had the trolley at one point that came right near the end of this bridge. This group of people, I'm not sure who they are, but we have a lot of pictures of them over about a 4-year period, where they would take these pictures every year and for New Year's and Christmas in the surf in their swimsuits. And I could just imagine people back east, you know, in 5 feet of snow, and here they're getting pictures of people in their swimsuits in Ocean Beach, that they were probably some of the best PR for California and Ocean Beach at the time. The children here, the woman on the left is Carol Bowers, and she was one of the original founders of the Ocean Beach Historical Group. So, and the gal on the right, the taller gal, that was Ruth Held, and she was one of the original founders of the Ocean Beach Historical Society. She also wrote kind of the Bible to Ocean Beach, called Beach Town, and it's been updated several times. And she saved a lot of the history of this area in that book. These two fellows both had a big influence on Ocean Beach. Ned Titlow was one of the original members of the Ocean Beach Historical Society. He's on the left there. And one of his friends was Frank McElway Jr., the second. And he was, his father was the one that came to Ocean Beach who had tuberculosis. His father, even though the doctor said go someplace to die, he ended up living to be 83 years old. This is Jane Miners, and that's a picture of her when she was 16. And she was, her family was one of the founding families here, and she grew up here. And she was, she did a lot of historical work too. This lady was one of my favorite ladies in the world. She lived across the street from me. She lived to be 96 years old. She was a very talented lady. She came here with a 3-woman band. They'd been in San Francisco, New York, this trio, and they moved out here because one of them had a boyfriend out here in the military, and they bought houses, they fixed them up. She was a horticulturist on top of being a musician. She was an artist. Up till the day she died, she read about a book a day. They got her a screen that she could enlarge and read books online. And this is a picture of the famous Rosecroft Gardens that she worked in the 60s up in Point Loma. Amazing lady, and I miss her a lot. This is Mike Dormer. He created the character Hot Curl. You can see it on his shirt there. And the mural in the background was from Muscle Beach movie, and the Hot Curl's in that. And that's Stevie Wonder. Back then they called him Little Stevie Wonder, and Dick Dale, the famous surf guitarist. And that was in the movie Muscle Beach. Mike was a real character, very interesting fellow. He married Flicky Dormer, who was, that's her nickname. She was a scientist who worked at Scripps. And she also worked at Convair as an engineer and scientist. Mike really, his cartoons are still shown in some of the surfer magazines around town. And he was just a very interesting person. He also did fine art and a lot of different things. This is showing Newport Avenue. And back in the day, we had like 3 different shoe shops along Newport Avenue. And the fellow down below, his son is still living in Ocean Beach, and his sister. And their mother owned a candy store, which is right next door there in the picture, next to Wood's Shoe Service. And they all go back a long way in Ocean Beach, and they started a lot of the businesses here. His family, like I say, started a lot of them. And anyhow, they put their mark on Ocean Beach. This bakery was very, very popular, especially for Thanksgiving and Christmas. They'd fill it up with rolls. Just everybody came there to get their treats and their rolls in the holidays. And it was a very popular place. And anyhow, one of the daughter of them, she comes to our Ocean Beach historical meetings still. This is Church Row, and they purposely put the churches down Sunset Cliffs. And the one on the left-hand side is the Methodist Church. It's called Water's Edge at this point. And that's where we have our Ocean Beach historical meetings and keep our archives. This picture came from the city in 1971. The city went through a lot of major streets and took pictures. And we actually have this available up on our obhistory.org page that Eric, our president, he put these together so they run as a video, and he put them to music so you can see what it looked like in 1971 when you came in off the freeway there and went all the way out to Ladera, and then it goes back the other way. And then it has a lot of other major streets. And Del Mar, where we live, they actually did ours too. So you get about 1 second of a glimpse of what our house looked like and our neighbors back then. But it's really interesting. And having grown up here, it brings back a lot of memories of what used to be here. And it's free to go up to our website. And we also have movies. We have photos that are put into the same format, half-hour photos. But I really suggest that people go up and look. It's all free, and you can get a lot of information up there. But anyhow, this what means a lot to me right now as far as an issue is our church, because the Methodist Church had merged with Mission Valley, and they were going to tear it down and put in low-income housing. At this point, we're not quite sure what they're going to do. They've let us still use the church for the next year, which we appreciate. But it has a school in the bottom floor for developmentally disabled. It has cell phone towers up top. They do the fishes and loaves there. They have AA meetings there. It's a very important community meeting place besides just being a church, and we really hope that they don't tear it down, and we don't know quite what's happening with it at this time. But the community really wants to keep it, and I think it's important. And it's been a great place for our historical meetings and our archives. This is Cornett, which was a very popular five and dime, and across the way, Homer's was another one. And it was the drugstores. This was before the Rite Aid and the Thrifties and stuff went in. So we had 3 different drugstores on Newport Avenue, and we had the Strand Theater. And I just love the bunny up top. You know, that was kind of the homegrown feel of Cornett at the time. It was just a kind of quirky, weird five and dime place to go into. This is McElway's wife and Mary Peace, and her family had owned the White Cottages, and they got married and they took over them over by the pier. And people would come and rent from them, and they would want to live here. So McElway got into real estate. And then he found that there weren't enough houses, that at times he built them. And there's actually some cottages right across the alley from the White Cottages that he built. There's another wood one a few blocks away that it's a cute little blue cottage. But anyhow, he'd do a lot to find you a home if you wanted to come and live in Ocean Beach back in the days. And you can see how empty it was back then. This was a real interesting building. It came from Camp Callan. It was moved here. The Boy Scouts brought it here as their Boy Scout building. Later on, it became a preschool, and it was painted blue, and the community really loved it. And unfortunately, it got torn down, and now it's 2-story housing, several of them. And a lot of people were upset, and they also had a protest over this. And it was a great place to have the preschool because it was right across from the elementary school. And they had a nice playground and great teachers there. And so it was just a really nice place where you could drop off the kids at the same time because it was right across the street from one another. But anyhow, it had quite a history too, but it was never deemed historical, unfortunately. This house originally was up on Catalina, and it was General Patton, one of his houses, and his daughter ended up living in it, and later it was a rental. to fit it on the lot and to have the light right, they put it at an angle, and the front door is now on the side, as you can see there. I've been inside it a couple times. It's got a really neat spiral staircase in it, and the way they did set it, the kitchen has nice light coming through it and stuff. But anyhow, General Patton bought quite a few houses near bases, and so this was the one he bought here in San Diego. And luckily they were able to save it and move it here. These two historic structures, the bigger one to the left is still there. It's got a little courtyard. It's very nicely done. And the other one was a carriage house for a bigger house that had once been there that was torn down. And unfortunately, it started falling apart and got blighted, and they took it out. And now there's some very big houses there with roof decks and stuff. It's kind of interesting because the cliff had been caving away there, and at one point I guess they were saying that they probably shouldn't ever build there again, but they have, and some very big houses, but maybe construction has changed since then that they were allowed to do this. Anyhow, it was a really cute little carriage house. This is Tom and Jane Goronsky, and they're on our Ocean Beach Historical Board, and they have given a lot to the community here. They've been on the planning board. They've a number of different organizations they've volunteered for. But besides that, they've managed to save some of the more important cottages in Ocean Beach. The ones that they're showing here are on Narragansett, and there's 4 of them. And they go back quite a ways. They also saved the Red House, which was it was kind of a hippie enclave at one point. They had a lot of people living there. The people that helped originally organize what became later People's Food, some of them lived there. The OB rag was put together in the garage, I heard one time. Anyhow, a lot of different things happened at that house, and the city was going to tear it down. They had deemed it blighted, and Bob Burns and other people, they got it on the National Historic Register, and Tom and Jane later bought it and cleaned it up very nicely, and it's still there today, and it looks great. And it was a true piece of history. Because of the hippies being there, catty corner up the street from them on the 2nd floor, they told the story about the FBI had watched this house for 2 years, and we had some of the FBI records, and a lot of it had been blackened out. They only arrested 1 person for pot in that whole 2 years, is what I'm told. And they some of the writing in there was quite hilarious, where they talk about one of the assailants went to the liquor store, came back with a 6-pack, went back next door to see the neighbor. It seemed like quite a bit of waste of money at the time for spending on watching these hippies and OB. This is a house over on Niagara, and for a while we were worried this one was going to get taken out. Luckily it hasn't, and they've fixed it up quite nicely. And it's just up the hill, so it's got a bit of a view too. This is a really historic building. If you go down there, the Falling Sky Pottery is right there where it says Public Library. This was the library before they built the other library on Santa Monica, and it's across from where the lifeguard station used to be. And next door was the part of the police station, and later the police station took over this whole area. But it was interesting because where Falling Sky Pottery, next door to New Break Cafe, now they used the 2 rooms for the library. One was for the books, and one was for more the keeping records and things. On the other side of that wall, there was this jail cell. And if you go into New Break Coffee, you can see where the owners have taken it down to about an 8x8 wood piece. It had been concrete and it was the jail cell, and you can see where it had been there. And we kind of joke about it because if you broke out of the jail cell on the one side, you'd end up in the library. But across the street from us, from this, they had an area where they had different rides and stuff, and the original lifeguard station. And they the merry-go-round was there. The merry-go-round was later sent up to Berkeley, Oakland area, and it's still there today. And the building for it later became a furniture store and then was later torn down. But a lot of different businesses have gone into this building here. Here it shows John's Surf Shop, which and Buford's candy store. Where this candy store is now where New Break Coffee is. And Jason Mraz actually started his career when he was about 22 playing in New Break Coffee. And anyhow, he played for the summer and we went down on a lot of Saturdays to hear him play. But very historic building. It does get flooded a bit, but luckily they're used to it and they sandbag it up, and it's survived pretty well over the years. Dads, I'm sure you've seen it on Newport Avenue. This is it on the right. Very, very famous. It started on Voltaire, later ended up across the parking lot from the lifeguard station, and then it moved to Newport Avenue. Originally, the parents owned it, and then their son, who they called the boss, owned it. And now his name was Mike Harden, and now his son is running the one on Newport Avenue. Mike died a few years back. This is kind of a joke picture a friend of mine had that when he was a teenager, they took this picture goofing off with the policeman down there, and that's when the police station was right in back of them in that same building. This is a great picture here. I just love this. I call it small fish, big fish. And it's out, they're parked out in front of the OB Elementary School. And I was showing this picture and I said, I don't know who these people were, but it's a great shot. Well, the little girl there is another member of our Ocean Beach Historical. And she came up and said, I was the little girl in the picture. So that was really neat. And, but you could see the size of fish you used to be able to catch out here. This was previous to Dog Beach, and they allowed cars to go down, but it's basically the riverbed. So during high tides, some of the time it would flood and cars would get stuck down there. And you could see here the 60s and the 50s that people used to hang there. They'd do donuts and, you know, whatever. But later it became Dog Beach. But when I was in this, I think early 70s, it was still allowed cars. And then later they closed it off when they had it more as a dog beach. But people would get stuck here. And I had a friend that made a lot of money using his big truck to tow people out because they'd get stuck here during the high tides. Ocean Beach has a real strong history in surf. And Charlie Wright, who's there, he was one of the original surfers, and he outlined Duke Sport, who came here during the early 20s and stuff. So this is right off the original design for him. The woman with him, Faye Braid, she was the first woman to surf in California. And this is tandem with her and Charlie over at Mission Beach doing an exhibit with the torches out at night. And this is Charlie later on. This was a tribute to him and Faye at the Sports Museum. Here's another picture. This is Faye when she's older. And this is Joyce Hoffman, who was the 1966 woman champion. And this was right after the Ocean Beach Pier had opened and they had the World Surf Championship there. And Joyce was also the first female lifeguard in the state of California. So we have all these famous water women who started here. Here's another picture of one of the surf contests down there. And this was another one. I talked about the cute little girl there. Well, she was another member of our Ocean Beach Historical and came up to me and said, "Oh, that was me with the ice cream." Here shows a picture of the Ocean Beach Pier being made. And like I say, the World Surf Championship in 1966 was also here, just as the pier had been finished. Gardening's a big part of Ocean Beach. We have a community garden over by Collier Park, and a lot of people grow their own produce. With People's Food was one of the first co-ops in California. And this is the Red House here, and this is the poster. They had to save it. They actually had kind of a party protest to save it, and you can see it's kind of all over the board here, but they talk about veggie food. They have bans. They talk about corporate greed. I mean, it has a little of everything, and that's kind of the way OB was, but that's what helped also keep OB was the people who were active in the community and activists for the community. Here's the first People's Food. They took an old cottage and made it into that. On the right-hand side was the Green Store, which was started by Colleen Drenzel and Kip Kruger. And when Earth Day just started, they had an event there. They were trying to bring Earth Day to Ocean Beach, which they did this day. And the starter of Ocean Beach is the man there in the middle, David Bauer. And anyhow, this was the event they had at the Green Store, but later the Earth Day went up to Balboa Park, but this was a lot of the people in OB that helped start that. The OB Reg was a little paper that started in the 70s. It was an activist paper. And today it's going very well as a website. If you go obreg.org, you can access it. And they're very active in historical preservation, communities, a lot of different issues. They're weighing in on the pier right now. So I suggest people go up there. They also have scans of some of the original OB regs here. At the time the reg was really active was when they were trying to put up high rises in Ocean Beach, and they were trying to turn it into a yacht basin. And the people of OB fought this in many different ways, and they had protests. They got into a fight with the cops at one point. They had stickers that people put in their windows to save the beach. And OB would be a whole different animal now if it hadn't been for the people of OB coming out and wanting to keep Ocean Beach the way it is instead of a yacht basin with high rises where we'd look like Miami. Formosa Slough, it also had a bit of an activist period when builders wanted to fill it in and put development on that. And this was one of the posters from that. They had filled up one of the pipes with stones so it would dry up, and a lot of different things had gone on. And water from the river comes in through there. And anyhow, now it is a wetlands area and it's beautiful. They do cleanups there, and they have really nice pathways to walk along it. And it goes on both sides of West Point Loma Boulevard, and it's just outside of Ocean Beach if you head towards the sports arena area. The 30-foot height limit is probably the most important law that was brought in by voters. The lady in the middle with the longer jacket was Mignon Shear, and next to her is Alex Leondis. Alex was the chair of the group that started this, along with some school teachers, including one who was his wife. Mignon Shear lived in Ocean Beach at the time. Later, she moved to Point Loma, and she had worked with the Sierra Club. She'd been a teacher. She had an amazing life. And it seemed like about every 5 years, Ocean Beach, Point Loma people, La Jolla, have to fight off them raising the 30-foot height limit. And anyhow, these are some of the activists throughout town. The poster or the flyer was printed on yellow, and this was the original flyer that they did. Luckily, the vote won that to have a 30-foot height limit. And at the same time, a lot of these people were collecting signatures for the Coastal Commission to be established at the same time. So these were two very important things to the coast here, which helped keep us the way it is. The only problem is we won in 1972, but it was years later that this went through the court. And in the meantime, they fast-tracked a lot of the buildings. You can see the one in the background there. There's actually one to the right of where these people are. These are mid-rise, but they're over the 30 foot. And unfortunately, we've lost the beach down there because they've had to prop up the walls and siding there over and over again. And there's big boulders, so it's no longer a sandy beach to keep these mid-rises going. And that's a controversy right now. Is the one right beyond the one that you're looking at there. They're trying to get the city to pay for working on the walls there again, and they don't want to pay for it. So there's a lot of controversy over these homes that are there. And this one behind, a couple of years ago when we had big waves, the waves were actually hitting a staircase near there and the walls, and it was actually shooting up to the 3rd floor of this. That it's not a really good idea to have these big buildings right on the edge of the cliffs. This was the protest when they were building the cliffs, and also some of the seawalls and things. Some of the seawalls have worked a bit, others have not at all. They've had to replace some of them. They've put giant granite rocks down at many of the beaches that you've lost, the sandy beaches and coves that were once there. And also here they talk about saving the views. They were fighting for the height limit. So as you can see, Ocean Beach was very active in a lot of the things that help keep Ocean Beach and some of our beaches the way they were. This is Crawfish Cove. It got that name originally way back in the day. And this woman, her family goes way, way back, and she's just a wonderful poser and showing the local landscape. But this is one of the few coves that still has sand that you could go down to, but it's becoming very, very popular in the summer now. And they did put walkways through here and staircases. Some of it's worn away over the years and broken apart. Other parts have held up okay. This is the same woman, but with brown hair. We used to have a lot of starfish and a lot of mussels. Unfortunately, I think the acidity and different problems with the ocean and overfishing, we've lost some of this, and you rarely see a starfish now. Some of the mussels seem to come back when the water's colder in the winter, and I'm seeing a little bit more, and I'm hoping that, you know, we get them back, considering this was called mussel beds at one time. But you can see back when she was in this picture in the 60s that there was quite a bit of mussels, and there were quite a bit of starfish back then. This is some of our famous surfers. Like I say, we had a lot of famous women surfers. And on the right-hand side there, you have Linda Benson. She surfed for the Gidget movies. She was the surfer that did the stunt surfing for Gidget in the movies. And Judy Dibble, and also Linda was the first world champion surfer. And then Judy Dibble, sitting next to her, the second and third year, she won the world championship. Her family is one of the original founding families in Ocean Beach, and her mother was very active in the Ocean Beach Historical Board, and she was also a gymnast. There's pictures of her on the beach doing some of her gymnastics, and she was a musician. Very talented, neat family. And then next to her is Mouse, and he's a very famous surfer here. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. That's him and Judy on the cover of the Reader doing tandem back in the day. When they did paddle out for Mouse after he passed away, there were over 1,000 people there out at Luscombe's Point, one of his favorite surf spots. And a lot of people really missed him. He's given a lot of talks about the surfing history here in Ocean Beach, along with Judy. And in the background is Cheryl Pendarvis, and she's a surfer, and she's been in a lot of contests throughout. She gives a lot of history on the history of surfing. This is Ocean Beach back in the day. And if you look to the picture of the right, that's Eric Duval, who's the president of our Ocean Beach Historical Society, back with his sister. But you look how much sand used to be on the beach there, and that's the old lifeguard station in the background. The other picture, the pier, that's Johnny Wilson, who's also a historian, and she's on our board. And this was shortly after the pier was just built. And I love the cat glasses that everybody's got on. Ocean Beach and Point Loma have a lot of historic trees. And one of them is avocado trees. And a lot of this because the Theosophists lived up in Point Loma, and they came here in 1897. And Kate Sessions worked with them, and Robinson and the top horticulturists in the world were here at the time. And they propagated 31 different kinds of avocado trees. And I think a lot of these in Ocean Beach started because they came from the Theosophists. And this fellow down on the left-hand side, he is the great-great-grandson of a lady who was the founder here. And that's actually his father, who'd be in his 90s now, under an avocado tree, the same one that he's standing under. And it's called a Queen Anne, and they're about the size of a reed avocado, but they have dark skin. And anyhow, it's producing like crazy. What was neat is I gave a talk to the Ocean Beach Green Store, and he was there, and he said, "I'll be back in a minute." And I had been talking about this tree, and he came back with a bag of 40 avocados that he gave everybody there, an avocado to take home from this historic tree. And I'm hoping some of them grew the seeds and maybe started some more of these trees. The one on the right there is an avocado tree that got deemed historical. A neighbor was trying to chop at it and didn't like it shading their yard, trying to kill it off. So the fellow who had this, it was propagated in 1938, he had it deemed historical. And this is one of the few times, the only time I've seen this kind of plaque in San Diego designating a tree. What's interesting about this, there's a cottage on the site. And when I came out with this book showing this, it became an Airbnb, and they advertise it as the Reed Avocado Cottage, and they show a plate of avocados and a little bit of the tree. So it became a point of bringing people to the cottage to see and maybe eat some of the avocados from this property. Anyhow, you know, is keeping the tree alive and the cottage there, so I'm happy about that. This Pack Shores is the second oldest bar in Ocean Beach, and it's still there. And it when Pearl Harbor was bombed, it was the next day that it became it opened. And the lady just above the driver by the mirror there, I met her and she was a real character, Evelyn Church, and she ended up marrying the owner. And she went through quite a few husbands in her day, but she was just a real riot. And this was showing the opening of the bar. OB loves dogs and ice cream, and that's what this is all about. And yeah, that's Frank McElwee, who I spoke about earlier, who lived to be 83 and had all these businesses in OB and real estate. That's his son pulling the doghouse and the dog. On the right-hand side, that's Carol Bowers, who had been on our historical board, her brother and his friend, and their little ice cream cart that they had made themselves. Willie Johnson, he was an icon of Ocean Beach. He was a shoe shine man, and he'd been here for over half a century. He just passed away about probably around 2020. He always had a nice word for people. The little boy in this picture was Steve Roll's son, who's all grown up now. And this was the Paris bookstore that was in Ocean Beach. Willie had also been a football player, Marine. He had a really interesting history too. And he was out there every day talking to people, and a real one of the many wonderful characters of Ocean Beach. Speaking of characters, David Locke Crane here with his trekking mobile that he used to drive all over town, but he loved Ocean Beach, and he had quite a few real estate deals through his father in Ocean Beach and Point Loma. And on the back of that's the famous spaceman who lived in Ocean Beach. And there's lots of stories about him. And he gave tickets to this planet so you can go when the world was going to end. Anyhow, and he was also an artist, and some of the local bars have some of his art up. But this really shows the characters of OB. Donald Hord created this sculpture, and Robert Gonzalez, who spends a lot of time in Ocean Beach even now, as an older gentleman, he was one of the models for this. And where the Modern Art Museum is, it used to be an art school, and Donald Hord taught there. And over about a year period, he would have his life drawing class draw different male models, and a lot of them were surfers and lifeguards from different areas of San Diego, quite a few of them from Ocean Beach. And Robert Gonzalez, who talked to me about this, he was one of them, and said, "So what part of the body are you?" And he said, "The upper arms and the abs." And he's showing me pictures back when he was in the Coast Guard, and I believe him, he's the abs and the upper arms. But and it was funny because he told me about the Italian guy, Dominic, whose nose was used in it. I've always hoped I could find out who all the people were that were different parts of this sculpture. It would be kind of fun to show pictures of them and have people guess, but I haven't been able to find them all yet. But anyhow, it's one of Donald Hord's most famous sculptures. The OB Women's Club just celebrated their 100th anniversary, which is amazing. And they had their clubhouse in different areas. The place they're at now was moved to a property, and it was a former church and schoolhouse at one point, and they've created a nice clubhouse for it. And anyhow, this hat contest they brought back years later, and I just love this one of May Clark with her hat. Because of me putting this in the book and talking about these, they've actually brought back the hat contests, and they have a night of it, and it's been a lot of fun. They usually meet at a bar restaurant type place to have their parties every year, and they're getting a good turnout for it, and it's a fundraiser. Anyhow, the group is doing very well right now, which it had kind of died down, but now younger people are involved in it, and they've got quite a large group of women, and they're doing some really good things and fundraising and working with nonprofits in Ocean Beach, and many of them are also involved with our Ocean Beach historical program. Anyhow, here we are at the end, and like I say, there's another book, Ocean Beach, which has a lot of information on this. And I also wrote a book on Sunset Cliffs Park, and it deals with the Theosophis also up on the hills and a lot of the horticulture of the area. And anyhow, if people have questions, and thank you very much for coming up and listening to my talk today.
Thank you, Kathy. That was great. And so many interesting pictures and stories. We appreciate it. We have time for a couple questions. We just went a little bit over the hour time.
Oh, sorry.
Let me see. We have, does the OB Historical Society offer any tours of any one of the historical buildings?
Like I say, right now the church we're in is a historical building. We have a fundraiser at the Wisteria Cottage, and we just for the first time we did a nighttime one this year. It's usually about the third or fourth week of March, because that's when the wisteria bloom, and they're over 100 years old. We're also going to be doing some walks later on. We've done different walks throughout the years. When Ned Titlow and Carol were alive, we used to meet in front of the library and walk the whole length of Newport Avenue and give a lot of the history. We do have different events, and sometimes, especially in the summer, we have outdoor events. We've had Richard Carrico where we've gone out to the Presidio, and during COVID, when we were all stuck in it, we got a perfect warm evening out there and sat on the grass and listened to him talk about the Indian history there. And so we do a lot of different things. Our meetings are free to everybody. If you're interested in finding out more, we send out postcards and newsletters. It's $25 a year, one of the best deals in town. And you can go up to obhistory.org, and we have that information there and a lot more.
Okay, we do have a question here asking if you could talk about the protest when a McDonald's was proposed in OB.
I don't know a lot about the McDonald's. The 7-Elevens were proposed. They did stop the 7-Eleven from having alcohol. There was some protest over the Target, and that's kind of a controversial thing right now, because they said they wouldn't put in alcohol, but they kind of did at this point. Well, now they've applied for a liquor license, and people are pretty upset. Unfortunately, OB's become so popular that we have like 400% more of the alcohol licenses than we're supposed to, and yet they keep giving more and more to Ocean Beach, and we're getting a lot of people coming down just to party more. And like the block where the Target is, there were no alcohol places there, and it's near the OB Elementary School. And they've kind of changed the rules, and especially pushing the tasting rooms and beer places. So anyhow, the McDonald's, I think one thing they did do, Ocean Beach protesting some of these things was part of the reason that they stuck a lot of these things over at Midway, according to Ned Titlow. They knew that they had to have uh, fast food restaurants as they came along, and different shops, but Ocean Beach didn't really have all that much room on Newport Avenue. And at that point, they didn't want it to just be clubs and drinking. And so there was a push to put it over in the Midway district, which actually is a good place because it's away from all the communities and not filling up Point Loma and Ocean Beach with those kind of things. But unfortunately, it's become more popular and we're having more alcohol problems.
And our last one, it's a comment, not a question. What a cool talk. Thanks so much. Although you document some that could have been saved that unfortunately have been lost, you also do a great job encouraging activism, both regarding historical preservation and environmental activism. You raise awareness of how those two often are entwined, especially for a beach community. Such fun and interesting images and stories. And I'm sure we all feel the same way. Thank you so much, Kathy, for your time today.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank our extraordinary volunteer, Janet O'Day, who served as chat monitor today, but she did a lot of the work behind the scenes to make this lecture series possible. So thank you, Janet. And thank you to our audience. We hope to see you next month on the second Saturday for Penning the Past, insight into San Diego's historic neighborhoods and architecture. And remember that the books discussed in this series can be purchased at the Marston House Museum shop. Thank you for your support of Soho and enjoy the rest of your day.